So consider this scenario in an Angular application. At first, we build a user management feature, and we call it user management, and therefore it's at the /users route. And then over time, we rename that feature to be people management, and therefore we move it to a people route, not a users route. Of course, we don't want to break all of the bookmarks that have been made over time to the users section, so we put a redirect from the users section to the people section. And we have to use an absolute redirect because these exist at the same level of the router configuration, and therefore a local redirect doesn't work. And this works perfectly at first, but then over time, let's say that we have to refactor the people section so that the list of people isn't at the people route, but is instead forwarded to a local list route so that we forward /people to /people list. And if we look at a simple demo here, you can see that we have a link here for people that goes just to /people, and what we will see is that locally this will redirect to /people/list. And let's jump over to the browser and let's go to people, and you'll see there we go to people and list, and everything works perfectly well. Now what you'll notice is that I also have an old users route, and what we'll see is that this breaks, right? So let's go back to the home, and now let's go back to people, and let's go back to /users as the old route. And what you'll see is that this ends up going just to /people, and we get a half rendered page here. We don't get the full rendering because the path sort of peters out, right? What we can see from our app module is that the user's URL does redirect to /people as we told it to, but once it gets here, this local redirect is not being honored. And this is quote-unquote by design in the Angular router. Essentially, once you redirect to an absolute URL, local redirects are no longer honored after that initial redirect. So obviously this creates a poor experience for the user. Now we can get around this limitation of the router by using a transient component to perform the redirect for us. So to see an example of this, let's scroll down here, and what you'll see is I'm going to take the URL for ping, and I'm going to redirect it to the absolute URL for pong, and then I'm going to match on the URL for pong, and I'm going to perform an absolute redirect to people. So essentially we're going to be chaining two absolute redirects together just to show that this works, and then even the absolute redirect to people will honor the local redirect to list and will end up rendering the list. Right? So if we look at our app component HTML again, here we're going to go to ping. Ping is going to forward us absolutely to pong, which is going to forward us absolutely to people, which will honor the local redirect to people list. And let's jump into the browser and let's look. And there you can see we went to pong, or we went to ping, which did an absolute redirect to pong, which then did an absolute redirect to people, which then did a local redirect from people to people/list. So how does this work? So what you'll see is that normally we would use the built-in redirect to property of the router configuration, but in these we're moving that redirect to property to the data so that we can inject it into this transient component using the activated route snapshot. This absolute redirect component is going to reach into the data, find that redirect to property, and then navigate to it using the router navigate by URL. Let's take a look at that. So here is my absolute redirect component, and you'll see that it injects the activated route and the router, and we're going to store the router, and then we're going to reach into the snapshot of the activated route so we don't have to deal with RxJS streams. We're going to grab that data property, and then we're going to grab the redirect to string out of that data property, and we're just going to store these. And we're going to wait until our ng on init, at which point we take that redirect to property and we just pass it to the navigate by URL. So essentially what's happening here is this absolute redirect component is rendering, grabbing this absolute /pong URL and navigating the router to /pong. So it's waiting for the current route execution to finish, then it's going to redirect the user to /pong. And it turns out that if we navigate to an absolute URL, then subsequent local redirects will continue to be honored. Now, this is not a perfect solution because this will actually break the browser's back button. So for example, if I'm in home here and I go to people, which does a local redirect to people/list, and now I hit the back button, you'll see that I actually go up past that local redirect back to the home. This is not the same as using that route or navigate by URL. If I hit this, right, and then I hit the back button, you'll see that essentially I'm sort of stuck in this local redirect loop, right? Now, once you're in an application, you can continue probably to use the local redirect. So this is probably a solution that would only be well consumed in an ingress route, meaning a route that gets you into the application, then maybe does a redirect at that point, because you don't want to break the user's backbone as much as possible. But for things like this, where we're taking a historic URL and we're maintaining backwards compatibility with it, we know that the redirect to is simply not a viable long-term solution because of the refactoring of apps that take place over time. As such, a quote-unquote ingress route to the application I think is completely a legitimate place to use an approach like this, where we're using a transient component to programmatically execute that redirect so that we can continue to use those local redirects even after we navigate to absolute URLs. So to be honest, I don't understand why the limitation exists such that an absolute URL cannot be followed by local redirects, but it's done, again, by design. I know there's a blog post out there that explains why it's done this way, but in these kinds of cases where that is a showstopper, there is quite an easy workaround, again, by moving that redirect logic into a transient component that does nothing but load, grab the redirect to data, and then perform an explicit navigate by URL using that redirect.